Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to work on Herman here. We're going to do some tune-up, general maintenance, stuff like that. My wife's 67 Beetle, her daily driver. Herman's got about 280,000 miles on him, so he gets driven a lot. That's what he's for. But what I'm going to show you now is we're going to adjust the valves. So to start off, what we need to do is we want to be at the top dead center, the firing position on each cylinder to do that, because that's basically on the compression stroke. That allows both of our valves to be closed so we can adjust them. And I'll show you that underneath there when we get into it. But first, we need to get them up to top dead center. And the easiest way that I do it is I just go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I adjust them. And you'll see how that kind of makes it easier. So first thing you want to do is always pop the distributor cap off. And we need to find out which one of these is our number one cylinder. Now, if you're not familiar, number one is up front here. Then we have number two cylinder. Number three is the front on the driver's side. And then there's number four in the rear. Two ways you can do this. You can take your spark plug wire from number one and you can trace it back to your distributor cap. So that's telling you that this is number one. The other way you can do it, if everybody has kept things stock and it's all put together right, is your distributor. I'm going to see if I can get you in here to see it. Right here, there's a little line. That's where number one is on this particular distributor. The newer vehicles, it's back here. So what we want to do is we need to rotate our engine over until our rotor is pointing at the number one cylinder. That's going to tell us that's when that spark plug is going to fire on that cylinder, which is at the top of the compression stroke where we want to adjust our valves. So I'm going to turn the engine over here, and now I'm pointing at number one. We will also know that we're at number one. You have your notches here in the pulley. And mine are really hard to see here. Not sure if you can see them. There's one here, and then there's two right after that. And now that differs on all the different years there are. But that's telling us that we're at top dead center. And we're at top dead center on number one cylinder because we're pointing at the number one cylinder plug wire. What we're going to do, we're going to go and adjust number one. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how we go to the next one. So let's get underneath here and see if I can get you in here good enough to see what's going on. What I'm going to go do quickly is I'm going to get us a light. That will help you see what's going on a little bit better too. So I'm going to wipe most of this dirt off of here just to keep most of it out of the motor. I need my screwdriver here. We're going to pop off our cover. And now what I usually do too is I'll usually stick a rag up here, because it's likely that there's going to be some oil in this cover. And it's usually stuck on there from the sealant. So we gotta get it free. And there we are. So there is our valves. Like I said, number one is here. Now a sure way to tell, I always go like this. I can feel a little bit of play there, so it's not, but it's definitely tight. This one's a lot looser. So I know both of those are up. So we're gonna need to adjust. Get yourself a feeler gauge that is 6/1000. Mine, I have my trusty one that I've had for a long time. I don't have it on the whole setup, just so I don't have to worry about it with all the other ones. But we're going to come through here then. We're going to loosen these up, our adjusters. Then we're going to take our feeler gauge, and this one's tight. I cannot get the feeler gauge through there. And this one is, I can get it through there real easy, so this one's actually kind of loose. We are going to take, this is basically an adjusting screw, and we're going to screw it in and out until we get the adjustment. And we want a light drag. We don't want to pinch it. That's a little tight because it's hard to move, so I'm going to back it just a fuzz. That's about where that needs to be. And we're going to come up here, put our screwdriver in here, and hold it from turning. And tighten our lock nut up. And then we'll give it a double check. And that feels good right there. So that's our exhaust valve on number one. Now let's do our intake. Tighten it up a little bit. I believe the owner's manual says every 6,000 miles. I'm sure in today's world, most VWs don't get 6,000 miles in a very short time. They're not used like they used to be. So a lot of people will do them either once a year or every oil change. That works out too. So there, we've got our number one cylinder done. Now if we say, okay, we're going to do number two, you can see the exhaust valve, and you maybe can't. I can because I'm underneath here, but that one's pushed in right now. So that's why we need to rotate the engine now to get us at our adjusting point, top dead center on the compression stroke for number two. And how we're going to do that, the simplest way is we're always going to turn our motor counterclockwise. Because the firing order, the VW engine is it's right here for you. It's 1 4 3 2. So it actually rotates this way, but we're going to go backwards, and you can always follow your wire again. But I know I'm 1 2 3 4 is my experience. So I'm going to go backwards until we're pointing at the number 2 wire. And one way you can tell that is the points will be open right now, and I know I'm pointing at that. So now we're at number 2. So we're going to come underneath here once again. And we're going to check number 2. Let's see if I can get you in here even closer. Both of those have play, and that's a good thing. If there's some play, you don't want them tight, because that means that your valve is likely open. Which is bad. Actually, that exhaust valve there is right on. I'm not even going to adjust it. This intake is just a little bit loose. Let's just tighten that a fuzz. Doesn't take much. No, a little too much. Sometimes it can be tricky. You move it a little bit and you think you have it, and you tighten this up and it's off. That feels good. So basically we got our 1-2 cylinder head done. I'm going to take and wipe this up good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back. We're going to rotate our engine counterclockwise, 180 degrees. That'll bring us to number 3. It's going to point at number 3. And number 3 will also have your notches lined up here. 1 and 3 have the notches. That's why it's important to know where your rotor is pointing to, which plug. So let's get all of our goodies here. And come underneath this side. See if we can get you in there good. Pop our cover off. Let's put a rag up here. I put the rag there because if oil does come out, I don't want it dripping all over the heater box. It probably would get on it anyway, but it's how I do it. These babies are on there. Come on, Herman, cooperate with us today. I've had this happen before. There! Yep, see that side's dripping a little bit. Okay. Number 3 exhaust feels good. On your older motors like this that have the old oil cooler, number 3 cylinder gets less cooling, or it gets hotter cooling. Okay, it's a little bit tight, but not bad. It's still loose. So number 3 tends to run a little hotter, and usually if your motor blows, it's usually the number 3 exhaust valve. But I've never had one where 3 went. I know that's the norm, but I actually had number 1 on my VW bus go. I lost an exhaust valve a couple summers ago. The newer doghouse coolers don't really have that issue. I know everyone likes to say, oh, it's number 3, but they eliminated that hot spot by changing the location of the oil cooler. Okay, that one's good. This one was a little tight, or I mean a little loose. Right there, feels good. Hopefully my arm isn't too bad in the way. Let's see what the heck I'm doing. And there we go. So we've got number 3 done. So what do we do next? Let's test you. We come up here. We're going to go counterclockwise. Another 180 on the pulley. Till we're at number 4. Points are open. There's number 4. Actually can't complain so far, which is a good sign. Actually, you know what? Both of those feel good. I'm not going to touch them. I'm not sure when I adjusted these last. I'm sure it's been less than 6,000 miles. So, but that's always a good thing. If they're not real out of adjustment, you know your valve seats aren't going bad. Your cam is all right. So now that we have them adjusted, we need to clean up our covers. Hopefully you're following along. So I always just go through and I wipe them out. Now, I did get some new gaskets out, but it looks like these are relatively new. So I'm not going to change them. Usually They're real brittle and hard. But they're getting hard, but I'll put a little bit of sealant on them. Not much, you don't need much. I know a lot of people say, oh, you don't need any. When the gaskets are new, that's kind of true. A lot of times you put glue them to the cover, and then you put a little bit of grease on this side. But I've found after time they tend to start leaking then anyway. So I like to put a little bit on. I'm assuming I must have put too much on that side because it was so hard to get off. Hopefully this shows you that it's not hard to do if you take your time. I know I'm whipping through this pretty quick because I've done it so many times, but the biggest thing is to make sure that your rotor is always pointing at the cylinder that you're going to be adjusting. That way you know you're at top dead center on the compression stroke for that cylinder when both valves will be closed. Okay. So let's bring our covers back. And pop the cover back on. Let's take our rag, wipe our surface. You know, it's very important to keep them adjusted. I said you don't want them getting tight. That's worse than being loose. So when you're putting your feeler gauge through there, always err on the side of being a little loose versus tight. Okay, there's that side. And then we got this side, pop back on. Also helps, you can tell, like I'm gonna just wipe here, it's still clean. If you've got issues with your motor a lot of times, like say the bearings are wearing excessively or something, you'll have grit building up in here. So it's kind of one way to keep an eye on your engine, make sure it's doing good. Looks like we're on there. Looks all right. So that's essentially how we're doing it. I can take this off. You could do it in any order you wanted it. I always do the 1, 2, 3, 4 because then I can do both cylinders on one side at the same time. But find out which wire is which. Make sure your rotor's pointing to that one. If you got any questions or comments, let me know. I hope this helped. I know it's quick and dirty, but I think you can do it. If you got some mechanical aptable, you should be able to do this no problem. Don't let it intimidate you. So leave some comments down below. Please subscribe, and we'll talk to you the next time we do some maintenance work. Okay.